Hi boys and girls, I'm Storyteller Fahim and welcome back to Stay Home Storytelling. Today I'll be telling you a very special story. It's actually one of my personal favorite stories. It's called The Elves and the Shoemaker. But before we tell any stories or listen to them, we have to do the storytime song. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know how the storytime song goes, but if you don't know how it goes, don't worry, I'll teach you and we'll all sing it together. So the first part of the song goes like this. It's story time today, it's story time today. Hey ho, it's story time and let's be on our way. So it's really simple. All we have to do is clap our hands and open it up like a book, like we're about to read a story. And then we do it again, and then we slap our knees like this. And then we go on our way, like this. Alright? And this is how the first part goes. It's story time today, it's story time today. Hey ho, it's story time and let's be on our way. Now, the second part goes like this. We clap our hands just like the first part, but this time we see if everybody's listening. And we put our hands to our ears like this. And clap it again, and like this. And then we just slap our knees again and go on our way. Alright, now let's sing the second part. It goes like this. Are you listening? Are you listening? Hey ho, it's story time and let's be on our way. And for the third and final part, we see if everybody's sitting down so that we're ready to tell the story. Alright, so first, we clap our hands, just like the first and second part, and we see if everybody's sitting down. Clap it again, we see if everybody's sitting down, and then we slap our knees and go on our way. Alright, and this is how the third part goes. Are you sitting down? Are you sitting down? Hey ho, it's story time and let's be on our way. Very good, boys and girls. Now, let's all put all the three parts together and do the storytime song together. Are you ready? Alright. On your marks, get set, go! It's story time today, it's story time today. Hey ho, it's story time and let's be on our way. Are you listening? Are you listening? Hey ho, it's story time and let's be on our way. Are you sitting down? Are you sitting down? Hey ho, it's story time and let's be on our way. Good job, boys and girls. Give yourselves a round of applause. Once upon a time, inside of a small town, there lived a shoemaker. Now, this was the hardest working shoemaker of all time, and he made the best shoes. He made all sorts of shoes. He made big shoes, small shoes, shoes with funky laces, and shoes of all sorts of colors. And everyone in town loved buying his shoes and wearing them because he made the best shoes, and everybody would wear his shoes. Now, I went to the shoemaker once and I got myself my favorite pair of shoes. I went to all of his shoe shelves and I picked out my favorite pair. Now, my favorite color was red, and I'll tell you exactly how the shoemaker made my pair of shoes. Well, the first thing he needed to do was to get the leather out. Leather is what he used to make the shoes. And so he would take the big piece of leather and he would take his big pair of scissors and he would snip away, making smaller pieces of leather to make the shoes. And every time he would cut the leather, he would sing this song. Snip, 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 cutting some leather. Merrily, 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 making a pair of shoes. Alright, boys and girls, let's snip the leather together with the shoemaker and make our own pairs of shoes. Alright, so can we grab our scissors and get our pieces of leather and snip away and sing along. It goes like this. Snip, 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 cutting some leather. Merrily, 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 making a pair of shoes. Good job, boys and girls. Now, after cutting the leather, the old shoemaker would then take the pieces of leather and use his needle and thread and sew them together. Alright, boys and girls, so let's sew the pieces of leather together. And this was how he would sing his song. Sew, 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 sewing some leather. Merrily, 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 making a pair of shoes. Alright, boys and girls, let's take our needle with our thread attached to it, take the pieces of leather that we cut, and sew them up and down and side to side. Can we do that? Let's take our leather and take our needle and sew up and down and side to side. Up and down and side to side. And at the same time, let's sing along with the shoemaker. Ready? Sew, 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 sewing some leather. Merrily, 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 making a pair of shoes. Good job, boys and girls. We've sewed all the pieces of leather together. Now, the last thing that we need to do is to put the sole of the shoe together. The sole is the bottom of the shoe. It's what we actually step on and that touches the ground. So, the old shoemaker would take a big piece of rubber and use his hammer and nail and tap his hammer to make the sole attached to the leather. Alright, so let's take our trusty hammer and nail and let's tap the hammer on the sole to put it together. Alright, so we use a hammer and we go tap, 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 and tap, 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 and tap, 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 tap. All while we sing the song together with the shoemaker. This is what he would sing. He would go tap, 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 tapping with a hammer. Merrily, 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 making a pair of shoes. Good job, boys and girls. Give yourselves a round of applause because we made our own shoes. And this was the pair of shoes that I got from the shoemaker. They're right here. You see? Aren't they beautiful? They're red, which was just like my favorite color. So, the next time you go to the shoemaker, or any shoemaker in fact, you can tell them your favorite color, and I'm sure they'll find the perfect pair of shoes just for you. The shoemaker would make the best shoes every day after day. And everyone in town knew about the shoemaker because everyone in town wore his shoes. And so he would keep making the best shoes every day until, you see, the town that the shoemaker worked in was part of a big kingdom. And the kingdom, of course, had its very own king. A royal king that took care of the entire kingdom. Now, the royal king had heard about this shoemaker and his excellent, beautiful, perfect shoes. And the king was interested. He wanted a pair of his own favorite shoes. And so, the king sent one of his servants to go all the way down into the small town of the shoemaker to get the king a pair of shoes. So, the servant went all the way to the shoemaker and told the shoemaker to come to the castle to meet the king. The shoemaker was excited. He had never heard something like that before. The king wanted to see just a small shoemaker like him. And so the shoemaker packed all his things, put on his coat, and said goodbye to his wife. And the shoemaker went all the way to the palace. Now, in the palace, the shoemaker met the king, and the king told the shoemaker what kind of shoes he wanted. I would like a pair of shoes, and they will be my favorite shoes. Ah, yes, of course, of course. What color would you like your royal shoes to be, your highness? Ah, yes, you see, well, my favorite color is blue, so I want them in blue. And I want everybody to know that they are royal shoes, so I will have them with gold dots on them. Yes. Yes, that is a beautiful choice. Oh, it'll look splendid. Your highness, what about the laces? What color would you like the laces to be? Laces? Psh! I don't wear my own shoes. I get my servants to put them on for me. I want shoes with no laces. No laces. Okay? The old shoemaker never made shoes with no laces before. But the old shoemaker had to make them because they were for the king. All right, Your Highness, I would love to make these shoes for you. I look forward to you wearing these beautiful shoes. Thank you. Very good. Off you go. Toodaloo. And so, the shoemaker quickly went all the way back home to make the king his royal pair of shoes. But this time, the shoemaker had to be quick. It was for the king, so he had to hurry. And so he quickly made the pair of shoes. Now let's help the shoemaker make a pair of shoes real quickly. Do you remember the first step? First, we need to cut the leather. So let's get our pieces of leather, and let's get our scissors, and let's safely, but quickly, cut the pieces of leather. All right? Goes like this. Snip, 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 cutting some leather. Quickly, 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 making a pair of shoes. Good job, boys and girls. All right, and the next thing we're gonna need is do you remember? That's right, we need a needle and thread to sew the pieces of leather together. All right, so let's grab our pieces of leather. Let's grab the needle and thread, and we have to sew up, down, side to side. Up, down, side to side. Up, down, side to side. Are you ready? All right, be ready to sing along too. All right, and it went like this. Sewing some leather. Quickly, 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 making a pair of shoes. Good job, boys and girls. We sewed the pieces of leather together, but now there's one more step. Do you remember what we have to do? That's right, we have to take our trusty hammer and nail and tap, 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 tap. All right, so let's get our leather, get the pieces of sole, all right, and are we ready to tap the hammer together? All right, well, let's sing along. It goes like this. Tap, 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 tapping with our hammer. Quickly, 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 making a pair of shoes. Good job, everybody. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was your second pair of shoes, but we made it very, very quickly. And so, the shoemaker wrapped the shoes with some cloth and brought it all the way to the palace to show to the king. Your Highness, I finished making your shoes. Please have a look. They're exactly like how you asked them to be. They're blue with golden dots. And I even made the inside gold. And just as you requested, no laces. See? I hope you like them. Please, take a look yourself. Oh, these are beautiful. They're exactly what I wanted. They match my robe. Oh, good job, good job. Oh, I'll wear them right away. Yes, in fact, I'll send a servant to your little shop every week. And every week I want a new pair of these. Thank you. All right, off you go. Bye-bye. Toodaloo. And every week, the king would order a new pair of shoes. And so, for those pair of shoes, the king gave the shoemaker a lot of gold coins. Boys and girls, this was great news for the shoemaker. This means that every week, the shoemaker would be getting many, many gold coins from the king. And that means that the old shoemaker and his wife would always be able to eat very nice meals, and they would never go hungry because they would have so many gold coins. Years and years had passed, and the shoemaker would keep making and making and making shoes. He would be snipping and sewing and tapping, snipping and sewing and tapping, and snipping and sewing and tapping all day long. And after so long, the shoemaker started to get very old. His glasses got bigger and bigger and bigger, and he could no longer see that well. He could barely cut the leather properly. He couldn't sew the leather well enough. And every time he tried to tap his trusty hammer, he got really tired. The shoemaker got really, really old. And the shoemaker got very slow at making shoes. Slowly, one by one, all the people that used to come and visit and buy a pair of shoes from the town all stopped coming to buy the old shoemaker's shoes. They didn't want to wait so long for just a pair of shoes, so they went to all the other shoemakers in town. Soon enough, nobody came to the old shoemaker's shoe shop. One night, it was a very cold night. Snow had started to fall from the sky, and the old shoemaker, he looked at his shelves with all of his shoes, and he thought to himself, if he needed more people to buy his shoes, he would have to make new shoes. He couldn't make old shoes anymore. And so he went to go buy some leather. The old shoemaker went to the marketplace, got some leather, and came back. And on his table, he laid out all the things he needed. His leather, some scissors, needle and thread, and his trusty hammer and rubber sole. And then the old shoemaker began to slowly make his shoes. Now, boys and girls, do you remember what's the first step we do to make a pair of shoes? That's right, we cut the leather. So let's all snip with our scissors with the old shoemaker very slowly, because the shoemaker was very, very slow. Snip, 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 cutting some leather. Slowly, 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 making a pair of shoes. Good job, boys and girls. And then what do we do after we've snipped all the pieces of leather together? That's right, we take a needle and thread and we sew them together, up, down, and side to side. So let's take our pieces of leather and our needle and thread and slowly sew them together. Sew, 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 sewing some leather. Slowly, 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 making a pair of shoes. And then, what do we do after we've sewn all the pieces of leather together? We take the rubber sole, and we take our trusty hammer, and we tap, 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 but when the old shoemaker went to reach for his trusty hammer, he let out a big yawn. He went, let's yawn together with the old shoemaker. The old shoemaker was so tired because he was so old. And so he decided to leave his hammer on the table, and off he went to bed to go get some sleep. He'll finish the shoes the next day, in the morning, when he's no longer tired. And so he went to sleep. Tap, 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 tapping with a hammer. Merrily, 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 making a pair of shoes. The next day, the old shoemaker woke up and went inside his little shoe shop. And there, he couldn't believe his eyes. On his work table, he saw a beautiful pair of women's shoes. He looked at it and he saw that the leather was his pieces of leather that he bought from the market. And the way they were sewn together, they were exactly like how the old shoemaker would sew the leather. But he didn't make these shoes. Who finished these shoes? Did I finish these shoes? Wife, my dear, did you finish these shoes? No? Did you finish these shoes? No? Then who made these? Seeing how beautiful these shoes were, the old shoemaker decided to put it up on his shoe window shop shelf. That's where all the people walking by would see the shoes that the old shoemaker was selling. And later that day, a very rich, fine lady walked into the store, and she noticed the beautiful pair of women's shoes that was by the window. And she said that she would like to buy that pair. And so she took the pairs of shoes and she went off, leaving the old shoemaker 5 gold coins. The old shoemaker was so happy. 5 gold coins was enough for the old shoemaker to go buy more pieces of leather to make another pair of shoes. And so the old shoemaker took the gold coins and went to the market to buy more pieces of leather to make more shoes. Now, this time, the old shoemaker got enough leather to make a nice pair of shoes. And so he laid everything out on the table that night. And he laid out his leather, his needle and thread, and his trusty hammer, that's right. And he put it on his table. But just as he was about to start working, he let out a big yawn. Can we all yawn with the old shoemaker? And the old shoemaker decided to have some sleep. He was really tired from walking all the way to the market that day. And so he closed his shop and went to bed. Snip, 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 snipping someone's leather. Merrily, 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 making a pair of shoes. Sewing someone's leather. Merrily, 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 making a pair of shoes. Tap, 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 tapping someone else's hammer. Merrily, 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 making a pair of shoes. And the next day, the old shoemaker woke up and opened up his little shoe shop. And to his surprise, on his table, he saw the tallest, biggest, most sturdiest pair of shiny black boots he had ever seen. Wait a minute. I definitely didn't make these shoes. Wife, my dear, you didn't make these shoes, right? And you definitely didn't make these shoes. Oh. The old shoemaker scratched his head. The leather was just like the same leather he bought from the market. And the way it was sewn together was just like how he would do it. They were perfect shoes, but he didn't make anything last night. In fact, the old shoemaker just left his tools there. But, still confused, the old shoemaker decided to leave the pair of boots on his shoe shelf, right by the window where everyone could see. And later that day, a farmer was walking by, and the farmer noticed these tall, sturdy pair of boots by the shop window. And so he decided to buy the pair of boots, and he gave the old shoemaker many, many gold coins for them. And he put them on, and he left the shop. The old shoemaker was shocked. Now he had even more gold coins. Suddenly, he was making enough money so that he could eat properly every night with his wife. But the old shoemaker was confused. Who was making all these shoes? And so the old shoemaker's wife suggested to stay at night inside the shop and see who was coming in to help the old shoemaker make all these shoes. And so the old shoemaker and his wife that night stayed in the shop. They switched off the lights and they hid behind a curtain. And they waited and waited and waited. And when the clock struck midnight, all of a sudden, snip, 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 so, tap, 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 tap. They saw 3 little elves. They were just about this big, and they jumped through the window, and all of 3 of them landed on the table. And there the elves saw the pieces of leather, and they all started to work. Snip, 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 so, tap, 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 tap. The old shoemaker and his wife saw that the elves were busily making a beautiful pair of shoes, and so they decided not to scare them away, and they both went to sleep that night. The next day, the old shoemaker came into his shop, and to his surprise, he did see another pair of shoes, but this time he knew who made the shoes. Right on his table were a pair of pink shoes, tiny little shoes that were perfect for a little girl. And they were beautiful. The way the leather was cut, and the way they were sewn together, and the way the sole was hammered on was perfect. These were perfect shoes. And so the old shoemaker put them by the shoe shop window and waited until a little girl was skipping by the window when she saw the pair of shoes. And so she tugged on her mommy's hand, and they both went in and took the pair of shoes and bought them. And the mother gave the old shoemaker plenty of gold coins. The old shoemaker was so happy. Now he had enough money to start making shoes every day again. And so off he went to the market to buy more leather and thread and a sole. And so the old shoemaker left some cookies and milk for the elves to eat and drink. And his wife sewed some tiny little colorful elf clothings for them to wear. And they all left that on the table and closed the shop and went to sleep. That night, when the elves jumped through the window, they saw the cookies and milk, and they were so excited they all clapped and hurrayed, and they all ate the cookies and drank the milk really quickly. And then they noticed all the beautiful little clothing that the old shoemaker's wife had sewed for them. And so they quickly put them on, and they were so happy that they made the best shoes that they could make. And then they hopped out of the window and left. The next day, the old shoemaker came into his shoe shop and was very happy to see that the cookies and milk were all finished and the clothes were gone. But on his table was another pair of beautiful, beautiful shoes. From that day onwards, all the townspeople all came to the old shoemaker's shop, and every day they would buy a pair of shoes. And every night, the old shoemaker would leave his leather, his needle and thread, his scissors, and his trusty hammer. But he always remembered to leave cookies, milk for the elves. And every night, the elves would drink the milk and eat the cookies and make beautiful pairs of shoes for the old shoemaker. From that day onwards, even the king started to come back to the shop. The old shoemaker's shop was the busiest shop in town, all thanks to the little elves. The end. Thank you so much, boys and girls, for listening to that story. That was The Elves and the Shoemaker. It's one of my favorite stories, and I hope you enjoyed it. Now, it's time to sing the goodbye song. Now, boys and girls, if you don't know the goodbye song, don't worry, I'll teach you, and we can all sing it together. It goes like this. Story time is over now, story time is over now, story time is over now, it's time to say goodbye. Goodbye, friends, it's time to go. Goodbye, friends, it's time to go. Goodbye, friends, it's time to go. It's time to say goodbye. Alright, boys and girls, let's learn that together so that we can sing it together. Alright, let's grab our storybooks and let's close them up like this. And we'll close it to the side and to the other side. And we'll say goodbye to our friends. That's it. Alright, now let's all sing it together. Are you ready? It goes like this. Story time is over now, story time is over now, story time is over now, it's time to say goodbye. Goodbye, friends, it's time to go. Goodbye, friends, it's time to go. Goodbye, friends, it's time to go. It's time to say goodbye. Be sure to check out the next video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at StorytellingCenterSG. Bye-bye!